Peace and blessings, Mishpacha. Hey, we're very glad to be with you, glad to be here. Yes, this is Yom Arba'ah. This is the fourth day. And yes, we're very glad to be here. And you know what? We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a discussion talking about Genesis 5. And yes, we want to introduce you to humanity. Coming right up, right here, I'm Melky Uriel. Get ready for another wonderful but quick discussion.
Malkia Uriel. See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down, to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant.
Right, here we are back again. Yes, we're very happy to be here. This is, of course, yes, day 4. This is Yom Arba'ah or Yom Arbi'i, whichever way you want to say it. One is day 4, the other is the 4th day. And I want to say that, you know what, we're glad to be here once again. The Most High has brought us to this point, and we're happy to be here, right now. And hey, we're going to get into our discussion. And just before we do, we will, of course, do as we always do. We're going to forego the song, but we will pray before the Most High. We want to make sure that we always greet and get our hearts ready to receive and get our hearts in a position to be able to go into these spiritual territories, right? So let's get ready. So what I invite you to do first is to forget about all the turmoil of the day, the stress of the day. Just kind of shake that off of you. Just relax. And at this moment, forgive anyone that you need to forgive. Hold no grudges. Make sure that your spirit is clean, that your mind is clean, and that your thoughts are clean. And let us go ahead and pray. Most High, we thank you, we honor you for this time, being together as a family. We come before you, and we just want to thank you. We want to thank you for what we're going to get into, for how you're going to open up our eyes. We say before you that our eyes are open before you. Ha'oznaim gam ha'ainaim ham betokim lifneka. Toda rabba yo'o. We thank you for open eyes. We thank you for being aware and conscious and being able to think and being able to understand. And we thank you for this moment. Bless every member of our family. In your name, Yah. Aman wa aman. Well, hey, we're happy to be here once again. Got to give some shout outs. Got to get some shout outs. Yep. Of course. Now I gotta give the shout out to the first person in the room. The first person to turn the lights on today was EJ Love. Peace and blessings to you, EJ Love. Glad that you are here. And also, the next one in the room was none other than my brother from another mother, Bergen Paris, who is the chief moderator. And of course, with him, right behind him is Josh and Penny smoking in the Smokies. And I want to thank you for being here, the dynamic duo themselves. Glad that you are here. Shalom to each and every one of you. Shalom. And who else is here? I did see my brother George Evans. My brother George Evans came in. And yeah, peace and blessings to you, my brother George Evans. My brother George Evans says, happy 4th day, shalom. And blessings to all. Prayers for us in Louisiana. That hurricane touchdown. We are not we're not in his direct path, but we are catching lots of rain and wind. Well, may the Most High give you and of course all of our people and everyone there the grace to weather the storm. And of course, may his will be done in all things. We have, let's see if we have anyone else. Oh, we have, yeah, my sister, Hanaya Israel is here. Peace and blessings to you, my sister. Glad to see you. Glad to see that you are here. And, yeah, shalom to you, my sister. Shalom. Peace and blessings to you and your husband. Let's see. Anyone else? You know what? I think that does it for right now. But we know others are going to come in. Again, I said this is going to be short. I'm respecting your time, and I'm trying to be more observant and respectful of your time. And so with that, let us get right into the lesson at hand as we go to Genesis 5. Well, as you can see, I did put up Scholar's Corner, the Scholar's Corner, only because we are going to be a bit scholarly, just a little bit as we give our observation here, but not too much, right? Not too much at all. And I just simply want to say that we're going to show you a few observations and hopefully point some things out to you that maybe you have not seen or noticed. And maybe if it's going to be a review, maybe the entire package will be new to you. Maybe something else will be new, but let's go ahead and let's go in. We're taking a look here at Bereshit 5. This is the 5th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, of Genesis. I was just thinking about the Torah portion, and excuse me for that, but no, this is the book of Genesis. This is Bereshit. And something that I want to say about the book of Genesis is that it is a book of origins. And it is a book that, for many scholars have said that the book of Genesis is filled with what's called etiologies. Now, you remember the movie E.T., where he pointed his finger back in the day, right? E.T., we know what that stands for, but I'm just only saying E.T. because that is the pronunciation of this word, which is a it's one of those words that, you don't use every day, but an etiology is basically a story about how something began, right? One famous etiology comes to us about the woman. Now, we don't eat pork, right? So I'm just going to call it a roast. The woman would always cut the end of the roast off. And she would cut the end of the roast off, and she'd put it in a pan. One day, someone asked her, said, Mama, why do you cut the end off the roast before you put it in the pan? And she came up with reasons, and because the juices and the way it cooks, and it just draws in more of the moisture and the juice and the flavor. And I mean, she came up with her own theories and came up with her own reasons. And year after year, when this question was asked, she would say the exact same thing, until one day when the mother actually was visited by her mother. The grandmother came over, and she said, you know what? She said, people have been asking me all this time, why I cut the end of the roast off uh, before cooking it. And she said, Mama, I just got to ask you, why do we do that? Why do we cut the end of the roast off before we put it in the oven? And the mother simply said, well, it's simple. Our pan wasn't big enough, so I always had to cut the roast because we didn't have a big enough pan. Well, of course that makes sense. But now, telling that story, it provides an answer for why we do what we do. And there are many etiologies. There are many etiologies in the book of Genesis, many explanations as to why things are and how they began. And let me just get big here once again. You can even see and notice the etiologies even in the narrative concerning Israel or Jacob fighting the man or fighting the one who is said to be quote unquote God. I do kind of want to poke with that story, and I have some issues, but nonetheless, let's just keep it moving. The etiology, there are a couple of etiologies there. One, it even reads in the story that this is why we do not eat the sinew by one portion of any animal that they're actually consuming. They said this is why we don't eat that. It is because of this that happened when the angel or the malach actually touched Jacob's hip. That's an etiology, right? You look at the story of Adam and Eve, and you ask, well, why is the man the head of the wife? Well, the narrative behind Adam and Eve provides an etiology or an origin story about why it is that men have the authority over women. Because in the book of Genesis, it's a part of the curse that women must bear because of the quote-unquote agreement to experience good and to experience evil and thereby know it intimately. Well, with that being the case, again, Genesis is full of etiologies and is full of stories that are designed to give you an understanding as to why things are the way that they are. Looking at Genesis 5 now, I'm not going to read every verse, but nonetheless, notice it begins, this is the book of generations of Adam. In the day that Elohim created man, right? In the likeness of Elohim made he him. Now, I want to just take a look at this in the Hebrew and notice what it reads here. Zeh Sefer, it's going to say that this is the book, right? Toledot of the generations of mankind, Adam, and it uses the word Adam. It says, Biyom Bara, in the day that he created, Elohim created, that is, the man, okay? And when you take a look at this sounds like we're going to start all over again to tell you the story about how the Most High created, man all over again. You have one iteration of creation in Genesis 1. You have a different version, an older version of the creation story that is in Genesis 2. And what we like to do, because, okay, and I got to be real, I got to keep it real with you, because we have certain dogmas that we're trying to prop up and keep. We have certain religious beliefs that we're trying to keep up. Long story short, we want to weave everything together, okay? We want to harmonize everything together. But for those that look closer and those that know the truth about some of the text and some of the critical points of the text, kind of know a little bit more and kind of think differently about some of these things. And we see here once again that as we take a look at Genesis 5, it is as if, once again, we're going to start talking about the creation all over again. So, but it does take a turn, and notice what it reads here. It says that this is the book of the generations of Adam, mankind, in the day that Elohim created man. And out of this, I've always brought up the simple point that a woman is a man in the sense that she is a kind of man. We are called mankind because there are two different kinds of men. There's the male version and there's the female version, but you are still a man. I think that there are some conventions that point to this in the language, and not just our language, but even more ancient languages. That, let's say, if you have a bunch of children, right? Um, you can say children, right? And it's inclusive of male and female children, right? You can say people in Hebrew. It is inclusive of female and male children, and people, excuse me. But there's a convention that is really kind of interesting in that when you're talking about a collective of children, like in Hebrew, yeledim, it is a masculine plural noun, yeledim. It's not feminine, it's masculine. Whenever there is a plural that is a group of people that covers male and female, it's put in a male, masculine male gender for a word, and it's going to be plural. And that convention, you can see it in even this, that we're all men. And I know some of us think, well, but see, you know, that's masculine. Yeah, it is masculine, right? It is masculine, but please understand that we're talking about mankind itself, and what's being left off the word is kind. We are mankind. A woman is a man, just like a man is a man, except there are two versions, which is why we're called mankind. There is the male version and there is the female version, but all of them are called Adam or mankind or human being. Okay? And notice what it reads here in verse 2 as I go there. Male and female created he them and blessed them and called their name Adam in the day that they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness after his image and called his name Seth. Now, please, I want you to notice something. Again, another convention that we see in the book of Genesis is that if you were to read this verse 3, you would see it says that Adam lived for X amount of years, in this case, 130 years, and he begot a son in his own likeness. Where is the discussion of Cain? Where is the discussion of Abel? You do not see it. You do not see it, okay? And after this, you'll see that we kind of pick up from where Seth began with the rest of creation and with the rest of what is going on here. It has been said that humanity is as much the son of Seth as it is the son of Adam. Because when you think of it, Cain was, Abel was no more, but then Cain had his own seed and were somewhat ostracized, if you will, was a vagabond, so forth and so on, and was basically on the outskirts of society and not accepted, if you will. Well, taking a look at this, we see that Seth now takes the forefront. And it says that the days of Adam after he begot Seth were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. All the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and then he died. So we're getting into some of the genealogies here. And I'm not going to read all of the genealogies, but one thing I will note again, that I see this as positive, I see this as a blessing, because when you read things about people like, let's see, we already mentioned Seth, but notice what it reads here in verse number 7. And Seth lived after he begot Enos 807 years and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Seth were 912 years old, and he died. You don't hear about anything that Seth said. You don't hear about anything that Seth did. You don't hear about any word of the Most High coming to Seth, even though he was the very son of Adam, okay? You don't hear anything about him, okay? Now, I know it may be said, well, there are other apocryphal writings that may contain something about him. But notice, in this book that we are said to live by, you actually do not find anything about Seth being mentioned. Why? Because the main and divine purpose of Seth's life was not to do something great in the sense that we would say that something is great, but as I've stated before, it was just simply to stay alive. What a blessed agenda that is. What a blessed goal that is, destiny that is, to just simply, all you have to do is be happy, stay alive, take care of your family, and you fulfilled your divine mission for this life. What a wonderful thing to see. What a wonderful thing to behold, and what a wonderful thing to experience. Let's take a look here as we also take a look here. It says that Seth, after he lived such a long age, right, he begot Enos, and then Enos begot Canaan, okay, not Cain, but Canaan, and they had sons and daughters. Now, what has been stated and what is somewhat of an understanding for us, that since they lived for such a long time, the general consensus is that these men lived a very long time, and they had spurts of having children. In other words, Adam had a son, and then he waited maybe like 100 more years, and then he had more children, and then they would have like another batch of children, right? And what you end up doing is you're actually separating people groups, and one individual is actually able to bring about in a sense, a number of generations, if you will. You wait, it has been stated that a generation is 40 years. You wait more than 40 years, and then you have more children. Well, you have actually birthed another generation, even though you did birth the previous generations. And so then individuals, men who would then go out, they could then take wives of all of those in these other pockets of children, and pockets of people, and so pockets of adults. They could then find, if you will, wives that would still be somewhat in their family, but they would be distant, if you know what I mean. But they would still be in the family, and it is actually very interesting when you understand how the population began to grow. It grew in spurts, and it grew in pockets, but it did it in a way that eventually everyone could be mixed. There's so much more to say on that, but that's not the purpose and the topic of tonight. But as we continue, we see where one begot another, and another begot another, and another begot another, until we get to some of the more famous individuals. Some of the more famous individuals here in Genesis chapter 5. Notice what we read in verse number 18. And Yared, which, by the way, this is the middle name of my youngest boy, and Jared lived 162 years. That's a long time. Lived 162 years, and he begot Enoch. And Yared lived, after he begot Enoch, 800 years, and begot sons and daughters. See, this is what I mean. At first, he lived 162 years, and he had sons and daughters. Then he lived for another, on top of that, he lived 600 plus years, and then began to have more sons and more daughters. That's what I mean by the leapfrogging and by the having children in pockets, okay, and creating other generations even in your own lifetime. And all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. Another blessed life. All you got to do is simply be happy, enjoy yourself, and take care of your family. That's your divine mandate. Well, as we take a look here, we see something interesting. It reads in verse number 21, and Enoch lived 65 years. He lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. And Enoch walked with Elohim after he begot Methuselah 300 years, and he begot sons. So when Methuselah was 365 years old, okay, wink, wink, he had sons and daughters. All the days of Enoch were 365 years. Now, here's the verse of interest and a verse of controversy. Genesis 5 and 24, which reads, "And Enoch walked with Elohim, and he was not, for Elohim took him." Now, this says a number of different things. If we were to look at this and understand that our Elohim was actually still in contact with humanity itself. Notice, even after Adam disobeyed by eating of the tree, both he and his wife, the Most High was still walking in the garden, and the Most High still walked into their presence, and they had a conversation. Again, I would state, because I know I'm always dishing out these polemics against original sin, right? And being fallen from grace. It seems like I'm always doing that. Well, let me just simply say this. If there was such a wretched thing as original sin, and you just fell from grace, and you're no good, and you're dirty, and now you're bound by sin, and you can't help yourself, there is no way that a person would have been able to remain in that state in the presence of the Most High. But Adam and Chava were in the presence of the Most High. Cain also was in the presence of the Most High, and Cain was told in chapter 4 that we talked about in the weeks previously. Cain was told that he had power over sin. He just simply had to make the right choice. And with that being stated, we see then that all of that hoopla about original sin and falling from grace, it is nothing but a bold-faced lie. It is a bold-faced lie because we see where if humanity was so depraved, and where every individual was now in sin because of what Adam and Eve did, then we would not have what is read in verse number 24, where not only did Enoch walk with Elohim, not only did he have the capacity to walk with Elohim, he was not estranged from Elohim. Elohim was not blocked or estranged from him. They walked together. And it says, and he was not, for Elohim took him unto himself and hired him and put him in the continuum, if you will, in the continuum of the Elohim, in the continuum of the B'nai Elohim, and brought him into the council and allowed him to be a participant, if you will. Prophets had the ability to witness the council, the divine council, which is why we take a look at that famous passage of scripture, 1 Kings chapter 22, verses 19 through 23. We see one of the most vivid portrayals and depictions of the divine council. And the divine council itself is being seen, is being peeped by a prophet, right? They had the ability to see into these divine places and these divine settings, and they had the ability to eavesdrop, if you will, and sit in on some of the divine councils. Well, here we see where Enoch was actually taken, and if you look at the book of Enoch, which I began to do back when I was in high school, you understand that Enoch was brought into the council, and he began to interact with the Malachim. Now, he interacted with those that we understand today are the Nephilim, the fallen ones, because they wanted to repent. If you look at the book of Enoch, they actually wanted to repent, and they were repentant. They wanted back in. They're like, yeah, we did this sin, but hey, we want back in. I'm sorry, and they were not able to get back in. And so, with that being the case, that also puts a hole in the head of certain concepts that these evil, wicked Malachim, these Nephilim, they have no, they're emotionally bereft, they can't repent, so forth and so on. The angels that fell, if you read Enoch, first Enoch, you will find that they not only fell, but they had a great sense of remorse and regret for what they had done, but they were not allowed back into that divine continuum, and they were forever estranged. I do not know of any reading, I don't know of any narrative where one of the Malachim, who are one of the fallen ones, were ever accepted back into the continuum. Which is why we understand that when you look at Job chapter 1 verse 6, also Job chapter 2 verse 1, we find that when you have the adversary, now no one knows the name of this angel. Satan is not the name of this angel, but this is the prosecuting attorney of the Most High. And he is there to try to make sure that things are right and good for the Most High. But if you notice in both of those chapters, in Job 1 and 6 and Job 2 and 1, he is able to go in and out and attend the divine council and the assembly. And he is able to attend because he has a role to play. He is working for the Most High. Well, here in verse number 24, we see where Enoch himself, the seventh from creation, was brought into, if you will, the employ of the Most High. The Most High took him, and he was not. But now he had a son when he was early, and notice what it reads. His son's name was Methuselah, and Methuselah lived 187 years old, and then he begot Lamech. Now, we're talking about a lot of years that have passed, right? But let's just continue. Let's just continue because you're going to see something. And Methuselah lived 187 years and begot Lamech. And Methuselah lived after he begot Lamech 782 years and begot sons and daughters. Now, some have suggested that the tradition of the firstborn son, receiving a double portion and being honored and being considered, not higher than the other children, but just a more lofty position, if you will, a greater magnitude of responsibility and respect and inheritance. And some have suggested that the reason why that came to be was because of this pattern of having children and then waiting, having a son and then waiting so many years and then having more children. Imagine, if you will, in this case, Lamech, who lived 182 years old and begot a son, right? And then, the father waits, and then 300 years later has more children. How will those children look at the firstborn son? They would honor him. They would, look upon him as an adult, much like their father, except not their father. So there's a great deal of respect there. And of course, you can understand how that convention could take root and become something that is rooted in a given culture. Well, as we continue, we see here where Lamech lived 182 years, and he begot a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, "This same shall comfort us," okay? Which, by the way, for those of you that don't know, Noah means comfort, okay? Noah means comfort. And that's why you have this clause afterwards that says, "This same shall comfort us," okay? He's going to comfort us because Noah means comfort concerning our work and concerning the toil of our hands because of the ground which Yah hath cursed. And Lamech lived after he begot Noah 595 years. Okay? And begot sons and daughters. So the interesting thing here is we find Lamech, as we get to the end of this chapter, we find Lamech actually living after he begot Noah 595 years, which means that Lamech would have died 5 years before Noah went into the ark. Okay? And it says Lamech lived after that, and he begot sons and daughters. Now, here is something of interest. When you crunch the numbers, when you do the math, you have to ask the question, when you take a look at this, now, because this is so close to when Noah gets on the boat, Lamech lived after he begot Noah 595 years. Now, the reason why that's significant is because Noah is 600 years old when the Most High tells him to get into the boat. Okay? So now one question may be raised as to, well, what about the sons and the daughters. Okay, what about the sons and the daughters of Lamech? In other words, what about Noah's other brothers and sisters? Were they somehow overtaken? Were they, I mean, like, did they refuse? Did they refuse righteousness? Did they refuse? Right? We don't know the answer to that. I certainly don't know the answer to that question. But my question would be, where are they, right? Where do they end up? Well, we know that they weren't on the boat, because the only people that were on the ark of safety was Noah, his wife, his three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. Okay? So we don't know where the uncles and where the aunts to Noah's children went. It's one of those things that we would have to research, right? But that is something that you kind of want to know. Verse number 31, and all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So Noah is 100 years old, 500 years old, and then he has Shem, Ham, and Japheth. This is the end of Genesis 5. And even though we did not cover a lot, I said that this session was going to be quick. I'm going to tiptoe over into the, well, I tell you what, man, next week is going to be interesting, because it's Genesis chapter 6. And you know what happens in Genesis chapter 6. So let me tiptoe into the chat room here and just see if there are any questions. And just before I do, we're going to pause for a little bit of a station ID. Be right back. Hi, I'm Melchior Uriel, and I'm so delighted to meet you. I'm glad that you stopped by. I'm glad that you're curious, and I'm glad that you clicked on the video. All right, here we are. Here we are back again. And of course, what we're going to always do as we do what we do, we are going to tiptoe right into the chat room and see who is chatting up or asking a question. Now is the time. If you have a question, now is the time to ask your question. Let me give you the ask screen. Hold on. I'm running kind of behind here, y'all. Okay, now is the time where you are able to ask your question. You can call in. The line is open now. And yes, you can also put it in the chat if you have it. But now is the time for you to ask your questions. And so here we go. I'm in the chat room. And my brother George Evans asked the question. He says, by the way, peace and blessings to Malach Haban. Yeah, my brother George Evans asked, can the book of Enoch be taken seriously? Can the book of Enoch be taken seriously? Okay. When it comes to the Apocrypha and the pseudepigraphical writings, when it comes to them, I always, in some sense, either gather some information from the culture of the people or from history, the historical facts that may be, may have been documented in those writings. As far as from a theological standpoint, okay, even though back in these early days there was no such thing as theology. You didn't get theology until you got a Bible. You have to understand that these stories were meant to relay truth. and not meant to be, as the Western mind wants to think about it, not meant to be true in every scientific and pragmatic aspect of its ideas. In other words, we have to understand that the what we call the Bible, what we call the Tanakh, is of, if you'll allow me to say it this way, just for the sake of really stretching your thinking and giving you an understanding and helping you view it differently, it is a book written in an African motif, with stories that were meant to express truth and were not meant to be scientifically and empirically proven to be true 100% in every iota and everything that you read. Okay? That being the case, then it brings us into a whole nother discussion of how cultural memory and mythology plays into the spirituality of the culture. Okay? You're looking at how a spiritual story tells a truth and becomes spiritual reality to those that hear it. Think about it for a second. If you are a divine being and you're trying to relay truth to your creations and to your people, you would want to use a language or a medium or even a method whereby, yes, you would want to communicate spiritually and to enlighten their spirits, and you do that through telling spiritual stories. And I'm sorry, I gotta say it, I go right down the middle with it. We call those spiritual stories, those stories that lack the seemingly the veracity of truth and seems to be so fantastic, we call those myths. Okay, mythology is actually if you want me to say it this way, mythology is kind of like the spoken word in a spiritual tapestry, because it is laced with imagination and emotional roller coaster rides and spirituality. Those things are tied to spirituality in a very, very real sense. Okay, which is why even when you look at the book of Yirmiyahu, when you look at the book of Jeremiah, when Jeremiah was a young prophet first learning, the Most High trained him, okay, but he trained him, if you'll allow me to say it this way, he trained him and him being able to develop his perception of vision. He would ask him, what do you see? Jeremiah, what do you see? Jeremiah would say, well, I see a basket of, I see 2 baskets of figs. I mean, it don't make sense to me, but I see 2 baskets of figs. One is rotten and the other is, and it's like the Most High would say, yes, you're seeing correctly. Now let me explain to you what you are seeing as you are looking at those 2 baskets. And so the Most High began to train Jeremiah. But it's all about training him to perceive correctly, to see correctly in this mystical, mythical kind of a realm. We would call it fantasy. We would call it mythology. But those are, if you will, the mediums of communication that brings about a spiritual invocation and a spiritual awareness, if you will. There's a part of your spirit that attains to those kind of things and that finds those things delicious and needful, okay? Just like there's a part of your mind that needs logic and needs to understand that 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, Jesus' name is not, I know my brother's being funny, but people have used, now, and and since my brother brought this up, I actually was going to talk about this. I mean, I'm getting ready to get out of here in just a moment, because I really do have to be someplace very, very soon. But nonetheless, people have taken the genealogies, even the genealogy that we just read, that we just looked at, and said, oh, see, that talks about Christ. Well, hogwash. I'd have to say that again, hogwash. And here's the way that they do it. They take the Paleo-Hebrew pictographs, and they then superimpose their forced interpretation on the Paleo-Hebrew to say that, see, that's talking about Jesus dying on the cross. See, it's everywhere. And no, it is not everywhere. Okay, I have to say it many times when you're looking at the Paleo-Hebrew and you're looking at the pictographs and you're wanting to make extra messages beyond what is being said, it's like the Paleo-Hebrew becomes like one of them ink blots that the psychologists hold up, and you got to say, well, wait, what is that? What do you see there? And it's really designed to see into your mind and your heart and your perception of where you're coming from. It has nothing to do with what's actually there. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, those are called Rorschach blots. And so many people have taken the Paleo-Hebrew and they use it as a Rorschach blot to put in their meaning, their interpretations, and make it say whatever they wanted to say, which you can do. And that's exactly what Christians have done by superimposing their dogmas even into the genealogies. Okay, and they really think they're onto something. They feel really good about it, but it is a lie. Okay, it is a deception. It is a lie. Continuing forward real quick. Okay, and it looks like that is it, my brothers and my sisters. We are done for questions. Looks like there are no more. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you all. I appreciate you. And because I've got to be someplace very quick, hey, I'm being expeditious and I'm about to get the hay out of Dodge. So, as always, reach out to me via email. I have checked my email recently and I have not seen any other communications from any of you, my family. Please, by all means, again, I've stated that I would like for your picture. I want to do a collage of all of our family members. And with that being stated, I bid you all adieu. I love you. I love you. I love you, my family. I'm glad that you are here. Thank you for giving me your time and your attention. The two greatest gifts that you could have given me. I appreciate you. And hey, I'm being respectful of your time. And so, hey, with that being stated, may the Most High bless you. And yeah, love you too, Penny. Love you too. And I would say, Most High willing, we'll see you for Shabbat morning coffee, where we will have another wonderful discussion. Okay, so last question, and then of course I was just going to hit the exit button, but my brother George Evans says, Melchia, so when Enoch got turned into an angel, so does that mean that he was just more righteous and holier than the next? Sorry for all the questions. No, never be sorry for the questions that you ask, my brother. That's fine. I'm happy to answer and to entertain your questions. Enoch was, okay, Enoch was not turned into an angel. If you will, he, the term that I heard back in the day was translated. He was, meaning that he literally walked from the physical realm into the spiritual realm with the Most High. There are even traditions that says that he did go up to the spiritual realms with the Most High. He was allowed to come back and teach what he had learned for a year, and he did teach according to the tradition. He taught reading and he taught mathematics and he taught how to, yeah, you know what's coming. He taught how to calculate the special days and the months of the Most High. So with that being the case, yeah, he was never, he never became an angel. He was always a quote-unquote human being, but he was just in the spirit realm. Okay. We're going to leave that right there. We can pick that up at any other time you want to ask the question or something similar, my brother. Peace and blessings to you, Chanaya Israel. Peace and blessings to you, my sister. And peace and blessings to every one of you. I appreciate you. And again, thank you for your time. I love you all. Thank you so much. Without you all, I'm telling you, you guys touch my heart. I appreciate the fact that you are here and love you. And guess what? Yah willing, we will see you next time. For right now, I'm out. Shalom.